Prepare to witness the extraordinary journey of a warrior, a leader, a companion of the Prophet, peace be upon him. Brace yourself for a tale of courage, sacrifice, and the triumph of faith. Hazrat Khalid bin Waleed says that when Allah decided that good should come his way, Allah created the desire within his heart to accept Islam and opened many avenues to him. He says, I said to myself, I fought every battle against Rasulullah, peace be upon him, but after each battle, I got the feeling that all this running about was futile because there was no doubt that Rasulullah, peace be upon him, would eventually emerge victorious. When Rasulullah, peace be upon him, arrived at Hudaybiyah, I led a contingent of mushrikeen horsemen and faced Rasulullah, peace be upon him, at a place called Usfan, where we intended to launch an attack. Rasulullah, peace be upon him, led the Sahaba in the Zursala, and we saw a perfect opportunity to attack. However, we were undecided and did not attack. Which was best? Rasulullah, peace be upon him, was aware of our intention through revelation, and when he led the Yasar Salah, he performed Salatul Khawf. This had an impact upon us, and we were left saying, this man is certainly protected by Allah. Rasulullah, peace be upon him, then steered clear of us and took a path towards the right that led away from the path of our horses. Continuing the story, Hazrat Khalid bin Waleed says, Rasulullah, peace be upon him, then entered into a treaty with the Quraysh at Hudaybiyah. When the Quraysh managed to save their necks by opting for a treaty rather than a battle, I then said to myself, what is left now? Where shall I run? To Najashi. He is already a follower of Muhammad, peace be upon him, and the Sahaba, may Allah be pleased with them, are living peacefully with him. Should I go to Heraclius, where I will have to forsake my religion for Christianity or Judaism and live with foreigners? Should I rather stay at home with those left here? I was still in this dilemma when Rasulullah, peace be upon him, came to Mecca to perform the Umrah they had missed the previous year. I made myself scarce and did not see them enter Mecca. My brother Walid bin Waleed also arrived in Mecca with Rasulullah, peace be upon him, and looked for me. He was unable to find me and left a letter for me which read, in the name of Allah, the most kind, the most merciful. I have seen nothing more astonishing than the fact that someone as intelligent as you has not yet decided to accept Islam. How can anyone remain in the dark about a religion as great as Islam? When Rasulullah, peace be upon him, asked where you were, I told him that Allah will soon bring you. He said, how can a person like Khalid remain unaware of a religion like Islam? It would be best for him to spend his efforts and energies with the Muslims, and we shall put him ahead of others. Oh my brother, you have missed tremendous opportunities, so please make amends. Hazrat Khalid bin Waleed says, after reading this letter, I was inspired to leave for Medina, and my inclination towards Islam increased. It pleased me to think that Rasulullah, peace be upon him, had actually asked about me. During this time, I dreamt that I was in a constricted and drought-stricken land, after which I went to a land that was vast and fertile. This, I thought, is certainly a true dream. I thought that I should definitely relate this dream to Hazrat Abu Bakr. May Allah be pleased with him when I reach Medina. When he related it to Hazrat Abu Bakr, Hazrat Abu Bakr, may Allah be pleased with him, said, your leaving the place was the guidance Allah gave you towards Islam, and the constricted place was the shirk you had been involved with. When I made up my mind to leave for Rasulullah, peace be upon him, I wondered who would accompany me. I approached Safwan bin Umayyah and said to him, Abu Wahab, do you not see the situation we find ourselves in? We are as few as the molars in the mouth. Muhammad, peace be upon him, has dominated the Arabs and non-Arabs. I feel that we should meet him and follow him, then his honor shall be ours. Safwan vehemently rejected the offer and said, I shall never follow him, even though I am the last person left. Leaving him, I said to myself, both his brother and father had been killed in the battle of Badr, because of which he is so reluctant to accept Islam. I then met Ikramah bin Abi Jahal and told him what I had mentioned to Safwan. His response was similar to that of Safwan. Nevertheless, I told him to keep it a secret and not to breathe a word to anyone. I then went home and had my Conveyance prepared. As I was riding out, I met Uthman bin Talha and said to myself, he is a good friend of mine, perhaps I should tell him what I intend doing. I then remembered that many of his relatives had been killed by the Muslims in battle, and it would not be appropriate to mention it to him. However, it occurred to me that there was no harm in telling him since I was already on my way. I, therefore, spoke to him about the unfavorable results of our efforts against the Muslims and said, we are just like a fox in his hole who will have to emerge as soon as a bucket of water is thrown down the hole. I also told him what I had mentioned to my two friends earlier. He immediately accepted what I said. I told him that I was leaving that very day, and that my transport was ready and waiting at a place called Faj. We then decided to meet at a place called Yaju, where I was to wait for him if I arrived first. Otherwise, he would wait for me if he arrived first. We left our homes very early in the morning and met at Yaju before the break of dawn. We then proceeded together from there, and when we reached Hada, we met Hazrat Amr bin al-As. May Allah be pleased with him. After he had welcomed us and we had welcomed him, he asked us where we were heading. We asked him what had brought him from his home, and he asked us the same question. We then said to him, we intend entering the fold of Islam and following Muhammad, peace be upon him. He responded by saying, that is exactly what has brought me. We then joined forces until we reached Medina, where we left our conveyances at a place called Hara. Rasulullah, peace be upon him, was already informed about our arrival and was very pleased. I wore my best clothes and headed for Rasulullah, peace be upon him. My brother met me and said, hurry. Rasulullah, peace be upon him, has been informed about you and is pleased about your arrival. He is eagerly waiting for you. We walked hastily until we arrived, and Rasulullah, peace be upon him, smiled at me when I came in front of him. I greeted him as the Nabi of Allah, and he replied to my greeting with a smiling face. I then said, I testify that there is none worthy of worship but Allah, and that you are Allah's messenger. He called me closer and said, all praise belongs to Allah, who has guided you. When I saw your intelligence, I hoped that it would inspire you only to do good. I then said, O Rasulullah, I keep thinking of the battles I fought against you in opposition to the truth. Pray to Allah to forgive me. Rasulullah, peace be upon him, said, accepting Islam obliterates all previous sins. I said, O Rasulullah, despite that still pray for me. He prayed, O Allah, forgive Khalid bin Waleed for all the efforts he exerted to prevent people from the path of Allah. Thereafter, Hazrat Uthman bin Talha and Hazrat Amr came forward and pledged their allegiance to Rasulullah, peace be upon him. We had arrived in Medina during the month of Safar, -1 years after the Hijrah. By Allah, Rasulullah, peace be upon him, never equated any of the other Sahaba with me when it concerned matters that worried him, military matters.